When one side is saying one thing and the other side saying the other thing, where do you go? You go to the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Well, good afternoon. You know, it occurs to me after 110 episodes, I still have not come up with a decent name for this podcast. But I know my name. I am Charles Ray Dawson. I know where I work. This is ProStar Realty, and I am the associate broker and residential sales manager of this fine establishment. And this is indeed episode 110 of the Unnamed, and probably will always be Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. So, hope you guys are doing really good today. It is Thursday, I believe it's the 9th, Thursday the 9th of March, and we are rocking and rolling. And man, a lot of real estate talk out there in the interwebs this week. Not so much real estate news, although I did hear, and this is unsubstantiated, and just because I just remembered it when I was doing all my other research, but apparently a major brokerage out there who's been making quite the big splash in both the real world space and the virtual space has been accused of some pretty heinous sexual assault at their parties allegations. So, and I'm really sort of annoyed because I sort of wanted to lead with that. I mean, not just because it's salacious, but it is salacious, but mostly it's just because I've never been a big fan of that brokerage. So anything that's dirt on them, you know, my inner troll is just going to go all apeshit over it. But anyways, more about them maybe next week. It might blow over. There might be court filings and stuff like that. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. But other than that, what do we got going on in the world right now? Well, what we got going on right now is a whole bunch of people started sending me a whole bunch of articles, and I started seeing a whole bunch of articles about the state of real estate and how first-time home buyers are getting screwed. Now, longtime viewers of this YouTube channel will know that's nothing new, and we've been talking about that for some time. But apparently, the press has finally caught on to it. So we're going to cover that. But of course, as always, we're going to hit the numbers first, and just to give you the little details of where we're at right now. So numbers-wise, for March the 9th, 2023, actives this week are 14,472, which is down an additional 202 listings. This continues the slide that we've seen since the first week of November, I believe it was, when we started actually sliding down. We were building up through August. All right. Our new listings are at 1,970, up 217. That actually is also reversing a slide that we had there. Contracts stayed the same, 2,691, although with a different balance of under contracts looking for backups and regular contracts. All right, closings last week were 1,637. Coming soon to an MLS near you are 648. Now, from our Crawford Report numbers, our inventory is down to 63.7. Our demand has risen again to 83.1, leaving us at a new Crawford Report number for statewide for 130.5, putting us still in what's considered a seller's market. Breaking it down by the individual cities, we are looking at Chandler is still leading right now. Oh my God, Chandler, you are at 190.6. That's up from 157 month over month. Fountain Hills, Glendale, Phoenix, Avondale, Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe. Cave Creek still dropping down a little bit because they're in the Northeast, and we've been seeing the Northeast drop down. Okay, but Scottsdale actually came up a bit, all right, to 127, tying Paradise Valley at 127. And then Peoria ends the rest of the sellers market at 122.5, all right, still up 23 from this time last month when they were at the balanced market at 99.9. Right. Rounding out the rest of our balance market is Surprise. All right. Up 7 from 95, but they're at 102. All right. Putting them at very close to a balance, the perfect balance market of 100. All right. And then we got Goodyear trailing a little bit behind. All right. They're at 96.6, still considered a balanced market. And then we have our three bargain places, Queen Creek, Maricopa, and Buckeye, still showing upward trends, but they are still considered in a buyer's market. So people who are looking for deals, all right, need to look at Queen Creek, Maricopa, and Buckeye. People who are looking to sell in Chandler or thinking about selling in Chandler, this might be the time. All right. So that's what we're looking at numbers. The other thing I wanted to cover real quick is a little bit more talk we got from the Crawford Report people. And their big screed that they did on March 8th yesterday was mostly covering the fact and bemoaning the fact that national news tends to follow reality by 3 weeks. You've heard me say this before, right? People on the trenches out here, holding down the fort, we know what's going on from day to day. Very specific news organizations that are geared towards this industry tend to pick things up a week after because they have turnover time before they can write the article. And then about 3 weeks later, okay, then you see the national news sources start coming in, as the Johnnies and Janes come lately, all right, and come up with their stories of the week, all right? So what we're looking at on this, which I think is interesting, all right, that mortgage rates have gone up for the last 5 weeks. We're seeing 7s again. Now remember, this time last year when we hit 7s, every buyer disappeared, all right? They all ran screaming for the hills, all right? We're not seeing that again. Right, that's not what's going on. All right, what's going on is they're still in the game. All right, buyers are no longer doing that. Oh my God, I don't want to do this kind of thing. They're still looking for houses. All right, they're just using the new tools that they've been provided by their lenders and their real estate agents. Right, where we're starting to do the buy downs, buying those rates down. All right, and what the interesting thing in the quote that I want to use on this is they call out. The Wall Street Journal talking about housing market momentum stalls as critical spring season approaches, all right, and that because of the interest rates, we're expecting people to see that sudden run for the bushes that we did last time we hit 7s, all right. But that was being steered by something that they call FOBAT, right, which is fear of buying at the top. People were afraid that crash was going to happen, and they were afraid that they were going to wind up buying at the top of the market. So they pulled everything back. They were expecting a crash. Did we have a crash? No. Did we have a correction? Yes. Remember, we're down about 10% from our peak in March of last year. Right, but we're starting to recover back, and that's really important here. Did I throw that chart in? No, I did not. And so here's that sales chart I was talking about. All right. Since January, our average sales price per square foot have started to move up. All right. The little bounce is the activity, but coming into March, it is starting to go up. Now it's only coming up a couple dollars. All right. But still, all right, we're seeing the sales prices starting to move back up. Does that mean this correction is over? This is a really good indicator that it is. All right. Houses under contract, and the other thing to look at is listings that have successfully sold are also trending up. So we don't see the buyers taking off as much. We see the buyers being a lot more savvier. All right, we see their lenders being more willing to work with them for various ways to get their interest rates down. So even though you hear a 7, you might not be doing 7s. Talk to your lender. Call me and I'll introduce you to one of my lenders. And we'll see that getting worked back up on everything like that. Because people, instead of doing that, I'm afraid I'm going to buy at the top, now they're afraid they're going to miss out. Before, I don't want to pay too much for a house. Now it's like, oh my God, if I don't lock in a rate now and get a house under contract, what happens when we have the Carter II administration kick in and we're looking at 10, 12, 15% interest rates again? I don't think we're ever going to get that high. We'd have to really be knocking the inflation thing through the roof again for interest rates to get back that high. But people, remember guys, it's 7.7 is the average over the last 50 years, I want to say. All right, your parents and your grandparents bought in the 7s and 8s. All right, so we're not seeing the 2s again. We're not going to see the 3s again. All right, are we going to see the 5s? I got Fannie Mae saying we're going to see 5s again by the end of the year. I got people who are watching the Fed going, the Feds are getting crazy again. Interest rates are going to go through the roof. We got too many moving things going on. The Fed numbers keep coming in all higgledy-piggledy and stuff like that. And so trying to look at the magic 8 bars, shake it up and say, what does it say? It says the future is cloudy. WTF. So as always, do what's best for you. All right. If you are looking to move out of the Phoenix area in the next 2 to 3 years, as always, you don't want to buy a house. Right? By the time you get that moved, you're in, and then 2 or 3 years later, unless you're planning on renting that out and you're going to move to Seattle or something like that, it's not a good time to buy. If it's time for you to settle down, it's time for you to start raising some kidlings or something like that, or you're just tired of making somebody else's mortgage payment, now it's a good time to buy a house. Is it a good time to sell? Depends on if it's time for you to sell, right? If you have 2 kids in elementary school and you're going to be continuing on and you want to keep them in that school district and you have an interest rate that starts in the 2s or the 3s, maybe it's not going to be a good time for you to sell. So every case is individual. Every case is different. We can only talk generalities, whatever, when we're talking about these things. So it's, like I said, it's a personal choice. Make an educated personal choice. Okay, let's look to see what the rest of the world is talking about. First news article I got, and this sort of set the tone for the week, all right, is this one right here. Mortgage lenders are selling home buyers a lie. This is actually from the Washington Post, and the Washington Post by this Alexis Leodonis, all right, writing for Bloomberg, published in the Washington Post, was basically saying, and you can look this article up yourself, although it is behind a paywall. Her argument is that if mortgage lenders always say you can always refinance. And she breaks the numbers down for you, saying sometimes you can't refinance it to make it profitable or worthwhile for you in the long run. Remember, when you refinance, there's going to be charges on that. Refinancing can run up between $5,000–6,000 to refinance. And if you just lowered your interest rate by $150 or your monthly payment by $150, how long does it take you to recoup that? Once again, educated choice, educated decision. Are you going to be in the house for the next 20 years? It's a great time to refinance. All right, when it's time to do that. Is the interest rates ever going to get this low again to be able to refinance? That's a really good question, all right? If you don't know if the escalator you're on is going up or down, and you can refinance if it goes down, but if it's always going to go up, right, you might be sitting here bragging about your 7 in 3 years when everybody else is paying 10. Right. I mean, it's scary anybody out there, because I know that sounds really scary, but it's just like one of those things in an era of uncertainty like we are right now with interest rates. Right. It's going to go up or down or stay stable. It can only do one of those 3 things. If it stays stable, great. We don't have a question to have. If it goes up, great. You locked in at this lower rate. But if it goes down, great. You can refinance if it makes sense, right? I've always noticed something about these reporters and journalists. They always like to do everything black and white, good, bad, Republican, Democrat, evil, good, the light, demons, angels, whatever. All right, there are no angels anymore. It's all demons all the way down. So, anybody tell I just watched Yellowstone again? But those are the 3 things that can happen when coming with interest rates. And those are the solutions to make, make an educated decision on that. So, Alexis, thank you for your input. I'm glad you got your copy off to your editor as you're required to do. Now you can go write about something else. All right. Now, another person, all right, this is Crystal Ball. All right. Crystal Ball used to be with The Hill, and then her and her partner Sagar, Sagar, decided to jump ship and start their own morning news podcast. Now, I generally like to listen to these guys while I'm trudging on my treadmill. This particular photo of her right now, it took me like 4 or 5 times to try to... You guys ever notice when you pause a video, people normally look stoned? Go ahead, try it right now. Pause the video at any random point and look at my face, and I'll suddenly look like I just smoked a doobie, all right? All right. But in this case, I was able to get this, so now she just looks stern and concerned, which is good, because this is what she's talking about. Right? She's talking about the housing crisis and how first-time homebuyers are being priced out across the market. And why are they getting priced out? Her statement, and her bad person in this, is the Fed, because the Fed, by raising interest rates, trying to stop inflation, is making home payments less affordable for first-time home buyers who generally don't have as much money to put down on a house, so they're going to get charged higher interest rates. Right? And basically, the entire world is turning into California. I don't have an argument with that. I completely agree with everything she's talking about on this, right? Her concerns and her everything else is also inventory. This is a great little, crystal ball rant. All right. Show notes below. I'm going to include that if you want to sit there. And if you looking for something in the morning to watch, these guys are pretty good, right? They are very left of center. Crystal here is still pissed off at Bernie Sanders for basically selling out, getting his third Dasha on the lake and stuff like that. And, she's always going to look at things from that side. Sagar, he comes in there, he says, oh no, I'm a Republican and stuff like that. And I think all Republicans should believe in socialized housing and healthcare. So take it what it's worth. But they're a great group of kids. And I'm saying that because I think they're both in like early 30s or something like that. And they're a good listen. But she's calling out the housing crisis. And this article right here uses this great chart, which at first glance is like, oh my ever-loving God. And then I started breaking this down a bit. So headline of this one is affordable homes are in low supply. They got this information and everything from Zillow. All right. Zillow, for all of its worth, they do have pretty good number crunching, or at least they do number crunching. All right. But they're seeing pricey properties see far bigger inventory gains than cheaper starter home. Now, remember, when we're talking inventory, we're talking amount of houses for sale. So in every one of these areas, New York, Miami, Seattle, so on and forth, notice they never do Phoenix, even though we are bigger than St. Louis. We're bigger than Atlanta. All right. We're bigger than Boston. Boston's only like 70 square miles. All right. And it breaks down. It's like, hey, these are where we've seen growth. Now, notice where we see a lot of growth. Seattle. Why? Because people are leaving Seattle. All right. Seattle is too expensive. People are leaving Seattle. It's not worth the hassle. And they're, that is one of our major losing cities, along with San Francisco and everything else. So, you're going to see people at the bottom of the market sell their house, get the hell out of Dodge, move over to Greater Idaho, and set up shop out there. All right. Other things we're seeing along this, New York, okay, we're seeing a drop. And one of these things is by affordable house, okay? If you consider, let's take Arizona, let's take Maricopa County. If you say an affordable house is $350,000, it's an affordable house for a first-time home buyer. If all the houses go up 20% in 1 year, all right, that means that the house that used to be $350 going up 20% is going to be going up an additional $70,000. So now it's $420. Now it's no longer considered an affordable house. All right. So you're going to start seeing these great changes and stuff like that, and that means the inventory is going to start getting lower. Right? And what happens? We're not building cheap starter homes. Right. But when you look at Seattle, the reason why you see that big glut of inventory is because Seattle sucks and people are leaving. All right. You see New York numbers going down because house prices have gone up. Same with Chicago, all right, which is interesting because Chicago is also a city that people are supposedly leaving. So Atlanta, Georgia, people are moving into Atlanta, Georgia. Washington, D.C. will always be on that list. Okay, because it's a very small little area, and it's got a lot of real estate taken up by federal buildings, all right, and federal employees and lobbyists and all those other little clingers-ons that attend the imperial court, all right, they make good money doing that, so they can afford a lot of money to pay for houses, all right. Gentrification, I think, started in Washington, D.C., so every time you see a politician talking about we have to stop gentrification, it's like, hey, why don't you fire half your staff? All right. You don't need that many people supporting you and fanning you and feeding you grapes and stuff, that Senator Smuckatelli. All right. So, sorry, little political rant there. All right. Same with, all right. But then we got Dallas, Fort Worth. We see an inventory, all right, increase. People are moving there. They also have a lot of land, right? And you also see a lot more inventory coming on. Remember, think about it how we're looking at it, right? A year ago, this time we were in about 4,000 homes for sale. Now we're at 14,000 homes for sales. Those 10,000 houses that hit the market, difference, delta there, right, is the kind of growth spurt that we're seeing in the other gaining cities. So keep an eye on all those things. St. Louis, Missouri, don't know enough about them to comment. So, but that is Crystal's great little wrap up and everything like that. And she's looking at that with higher interest rates driven by the Fed means less builders are willing to start new homes, right, which is impacting. And if you're only going to start 100 homes in a quarter, you might as well start at the homes that you're going to get the most bang for your buck, the biggest return on your investment, and build the McMansions. Sucks to be you kids. Grandpa needs another den in his house. So, anyways, Another article that came out along these lines, and this is from a little funner site. It's called Zero Hedge. All right, if you ever hear me talking about these guys who are a little bit out there and they're a little weird and they're always pitching you gold and stuff like that, that's Zero Hedge over here. But they used my favorite Norman Rockwell photo of all time. All right, and that's this one on the right. I've used this on marketing before. If I ever become a gazillionaire, I will track down the original and buy it and put it up in my home. All right, but continuing on, first-time home buyers are absolutely screwed right now. And one of the things that we've seen is that the number right there is that we are this year we are the lowest in first-time home buyers being purchasers in a good chunk of change. I want to say at least 27 years or so, or maybe something along those lines. So, and what's happened to the first-time home buyers? They aren't being able to afford houses because first-time home buyers tend to be in the left side of the curve, left side as you look at the screen, of their income life, right? They're not the top sales managers. They're just sales associates kind of things. So they're sitting there. They're not making the big bucks like their parents are, because their parents have 30, 40 years worth of experience. They're getting paid for their 34, and these guys got 5. Plus, they're still paying off student loans. So we are at the lowest amount of first-time home buyers. So if you're a real estate agent looking to marketing, first-time home buyer might not want to be where you put your marketing dollars, right? Because they're a very small segment of the buyer market right now. So, but keep an eye on that. The other thing that these guys come up on this article is the first-time home buyers who are buying tend to have rich parents. Right, gift funds coming in for first-time home buyers. That's where mommy and daddy write you a check for $50,000. They gift it to you. They source the income. The lenders can use that and say, okay, he's got, he makes it, $725 as a sales associate at Starbucks, but hey, his parents just gifted him $50,000. That kind of stuff. So, once again, if your folks have money, you're more likely to have money just because of all those little extra things, including the parents cracking open the checkbook and giving you a little bit of your inheritance early. This is a big issue that we're having on that. So what's ultimately going on with all this? Interest rates, with a big run up in prices, now that the interest rates have returned to historical norms, now people are seeing the full effect of these new prices. Why are housing costs so much? CNN's got the answer. Housing market is short 6.5 million homes. You've heard me say this, and this is just a continuation. We are not building enough homes. We have not built enough homes. There needs to be more houses built. It will be the easiest way to bring down, cost of living if there's more units. It's called supply. It's called demand. The two lovers always crossing in the night. Right? That's the Tina Tambor line, not mine. All right. And the reason why I make this X is because Economics 101, you know what that means. So, not Wakanda, economics. So, what we need to look at this is, how do we get more housing going on? And the answer, fascinating enough, is take your mornings. I want you to listen to Andrew Heaton. Okay, Andrew Heaton has a podcast. He is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. He is, I wouldn't call him a failed comedian, but he's not making his primary money off of that. He's on this little group right here, the Political Orphanage. Can you see that? He's doing an entire week on city planning. All right. He has interviewed a city planner. He's interviewing a city designer. Planners and designers are not the same thing. City planners make sure sewage flows and streets work. Designers make the city a place you want to live. Earlier this week, he also had a mayor of his hometown, Oklahoma City, who did a great conversation about all the little things that mayors have to do with, especially when it comes to planning and development. A lot of great conversations about zoning. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you zone right? Public transportation. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you do it right? And once you sit there and you listen through Andrew's podcast in this week, and I'm almost through with today's episode. I'm Yeah, I am actually through with today's episode. Looking forward to tomorrow's episode when he's going to wrap up this entire week. It's the biggest issue that we have, and I'm going to say this many, many times. You've heard me say it before, is that politicians suck. All right? I know that's no surprise to any of you, all right? But politicians are very, very big at getting money to do big projects that they can get their photo op taken with. But they really suck at making sure that 6 years down the road, that new freeway doesn't have potholes in it. Because filling in potholes is not a photo op opportunity when it comes to re-election. Opening up the new I-5 exchange is. And they cover that a lot. When the public housing thing, big public housing boom, got going. And it's actually funny. Crystal talks about, was it Crystal or was it this guy? After a little while, all the voices in my head start crowding together. They start talking about, big public housing programs and how they were actually attacked by builders. I mean, like lobbied against, and we're talking McCarthy area. It starts with public housing, and next thing you know, you got T-72's rolling down Main Street. All right. But the public housing thing, let's throw all this money into public housing. Nothing to keep it repaired. Nothing to keep public housing repaired. So they turn into what we term in the business a shithole, and nobody wants to live in them. Right? That's the thing that's going on. Same thing with, you can get outside money, federal funds, to build roads. And every time you build a road, everybody cheers, but that means the people coming downstream after you have to come up with the money to maintain the road that you just built to nowhere. So great listen, great watch. That's my 100%, this guy, Andrew Heaton, listen to him. As soon as he thinks he can start being funny at the end of the podcast, you can just skip the rest. Right? This episode right here, he did this wrap up of when him and a buddy of his, who was also a comedian, decided to do a skit about playing SimCity. All right, mildly humorous, but they know when to quit beating that dead horse. All right, so that's my editorial on Andrew Heaton. But great, watch it. I'm repeating myself, and you know what? Like I am always repeating myself on all my podcasts, watch your children and pets around the water, boys and girls. We got some storm coming in, probably. They're talking about maybe next week, all right? Which means if the road's flooded and you see an antenna in the middle of it, that's the idiot who decided to drive into the puddle before you. Don't follow him, all right? Work your circles, hug your children and pets, all right? Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you guys next week.